friends, for this week's media demonstration video, I'm going to show you how to use watercolor paint to finish this cool kangaroo drawing. So remember guys, when you're using watercolor paint, there's a couple things that just make it easier and help you have a better result, right? And so first of all, we've got our drawing ready to go. I drew this in Sharpie. Sharpie is not water soluble. It will not mix or blend with any water soluble art supplies. So when I paint on top of this paper, my Sharpie lines will stay nice and bold and they won't move. That's one of the reasons why we talk about drawing with a Sharpie. Also, underneath, you'll notice I have this lovely blue mat. I did get a bunch of these a long time ago and at the scrap exchange. They're cardstock. It doesn't have to be blue cardstock. It could be any color, but it's really great to have this big, thick piece of paper here underneath my artwork. It protects the table, and I recommend it. Also, friends, you want to have at least 3 sizes of brushes. As you can see, we got small, medium, and large here. Again, you might not use them all, but it's just a good thing to have. You also want to make sure you have some paper towels, right? At least 1 or 2. A cup of clean water. I don't know if you can see this, but guys, your water does not need to be full to the top. Because you know what? When water that's full to the top spills, it's a lot more mess. So you don't need a lot of water. See, I've only got about 1 inch of water in that cup, and that is plenty. Lastly, guys, with your watercolor paint, so it comes with a lid, right? And when you open up that lid, the lid becomes a mixing tray. I say this over and over again, and every time I say it, like someone new hears it for the first time, and they're just like, what? And they can't believe it. But this is a mixing tray. It has little sections here so that you can use them to mix up colors. If you have more than 1 paper towel and you're about halfway through, you can clean your mixing tray off, and then you can keep on mixing, guys. So you need a paper towel to dry off your painting at the end. You need a paper towel to clean your mixing tray. So 2 paper towels is a good idea. Next, we're going to talk about having that other thing that I mentioned very frequently, and that is a piece of extra paper. A lot of kids come to class and they have no extra paper handy. They're not ready to test out colors. They're not ready to do some practice lines for their drawings. So guys, sometimes I call this free draw paper. Sometimes I call it just printer paper, but it's just extra paper, and it's paper that you may just end up recycling when this is over, but it helps you. It is an important thing to have handy and nearby. So I'm going to do some color testing first before I decide what color my kangaroo and background are going to be. And to do that, I want to also say, if your mat board is blue, for example, you want to use paper that's white. You want to use a paper towel that's white so that you can see your colors clearly, okay? You can tell if I was using that on blue, I wouldn't be able to see it quite as clearly. So I'm going to place it right there also so that I can see it the way I need to. So to do some color testing, I am not going to use all 3 of these brushes. I'm just going to go with my medium brush first. And do you see what I've got going on here? I have the paint on this side. The mixing tray is closest to my paper that I'm going to paint on. And I've got a paper towel under it. All of that is important. I'm going to take my water. I'm going to place it right there. So guys, what am I doing? I'm right-handed, right? And if I was left-handed, I would be doing the same thing on the opposite side. It just depends on which hand is your dominant hand. That way, when you're doing your testing, you have a less likelihood of dripping paint everywhere. And if you're not reaching over like this or reaching over like that, then you're much less likely to spill this water. So I'm going to start out by getting my brush wet, and I want to show you a couple things. So first of all, you want to make sure that you get your paint wet. So this is called watercolor paint for a reason. And so what I'm doing first is I'm taking a little bit of clean water, and I'm just getting each one of these little cakes of paint wet. And by doing that, the water is going to start to react with the paint and is going to turn into paint. Right now it's dried paint, guys, and when you just barely get it wet, there's not a whole lot of color in it. But if you let it soak a little bit, like I just did there, I've added some water to the black, to the red, to the orange. See what I'm doing? Clean brush. Because if you don't end up using it, it'll just eventually evaporate and dry out, which is a good thing, because then your paints don't get all gooey. So it's really the best of both worlds. All right, so I've put water in all of my paints, right? I'm still not doing anything yet. So let's just talk about a quick and easy color mix. So for example, I'm going to get some red in here and I'm going to put that red right here. So friends, what would you do if you wanted a darker red? Well, it's true. You could add some brown or purple, but what's surprising is if you add just a little bit of black to a red, you're going to get this deeper, darker red. And just check that out. It's a really nice color. And if you wanted to see how different it is, you could just take some straight red and put it right next to it. And so if you said, well, I want to make it even darker, we'll add a little more black, just see what happens, and just test it out on your paper. And so now you've got like 3 shades there that are kind of cool. Some people then say, well, what if I want it to be lighter? Well, you just need to add more water because water is clear. And by adding more water, see that? You could make it even lighter, almost like a pink. So that is just one example, okay? I want you to just do yourself a favor and try that with these different colors. You don't have to do black with every color. I just mean try just some other options. So for example, if I want to try green and I want to see what happens by adding a little blue, say, oh yeah, I like that. That's a cool color. Well, what if you want to add a little yellow to it instead, right? You say, oh yeah, wow. Well, that's a cool color too. And then you can see a little happy accident happened. My red is trying to mix with my green. So now I'm going to stir the whole thing together. And look at that. Now I have a slightly different green. So as you can see, friends, there's a lot of fun ways to do the same thing and get different results. So one more experiment here. I'm going to do purple. I'll say, okay, purple looks nice. Well, I think I'll try adding a little bit of blue. And so I'm trying to clean my brush in between colors so that it's not going to be super messy. So that still looks pretty purple to me, so I'm going to go a little bluer. That looks a little too blue, so I'm going to add a little purple. There we go. That looks good to me. But then, remember, you can always take yellow and mix yellow into it and say, well, interesting. That is an even different shade of green. But as you can see, friends, my mixing tray is now messy and my yellow is messy. So luckily, to clean that yellow off, all you got to do is fold up your paper towel and press that in there. And your yellow is back to being pretty much yellow. And in your mixing tray, see how I folded it to be sort of like the same shape? It's like a rectangle. I'm just going to go on in there and press down. And ta-da! My paint tray is looking good. My paper towel now looks like a tie-dye t-shirt, which also looks pretty good. You can save these and cut them into shapes later when they're dry and hang them up in your window for a sun catcher. All right, guys, I think you get the idea. I want you to experiment with some paint mixing and blending. Think about ways you can make your colors lighter just by adding water. Look at that. That's cool. And look at these awesome shades just from a Crayola set of paint. Okay, guys? You got a lot of good things you can do. All right, enough talking. Now it's time for painting. I'm going to do the rest of this in time lapse. It's going to be lots of fun. Hang in there with me, guys. You're getting ready to go to Australia. Here we go. So guys, I had a great time painting this. I love the colors I chose, and I'm so happy that I did some experimenting beforehand, so I had some ideas. I also had to clean my mixing tray a couple times. This I love the colors here, but this might be one of my new favorite colors right here. Look at this one. This is sort of that kind of like aqua teal. Not sure what that is, like sea glass color. That is pretty. I like that a lot. So anyway, guys, as you can see, there's a lot of things you need to do to get a drawing to be finished. And when you take the color all the way to the edge and all the way up to each of your black lines, it just ends up looking really great. Now, a kangaroo does have the color fur that is almost exactly like the color of the ground. And so I tried to make the ground slightly greener, and I tried to make the kangaroo slightly more yellow. That would be just so that they aren't exactly the same. The black lines do help make things stand out, but it's also important as an artist to choose colors that also help things stand out. And I had some fun with the sky, and, you know, there's always little things you can do. Sometimes you can layer, you know, you can go back and say, well, I want this to be a little darker right here. And you can just let it dry a little bit and then go put in another layer in a few spots. And that's a really fun thing to do. I'm going to go ahead and just do that in a few spots. And it creates sort of a cool shadow almost, and it's just fun. So if you want to experiment with that as well, you can. You can also use a paper towel to soak up any extra paint. This one I think is pretty much full, but and this one got pretty full as well, although it still has some use in it. So remember, just always lay it flat and lift it up, okay? So you never wipe or rub this because you're going to smudge it really bad. And if you want to go ahead and get a clean paper towel and just see if there's any moisture left, it's another thing you can do. And if there was, that's okay. You can just save this for another day. But anyway, guys, a couple things. The drawing looks great. Let it dry somewhere nice and flat. But guys, you got to take care of your supplies as well. A lot of parents ask me to tell you this. That's why I do it. So I've rinsed out my brushes. They're ready for me for another day. I'm just going to set them right over here to dry. And my mixing tray needs another cleaning, right? So I'm not going to get a fresh paper towel to do that. That would be wasteful. I'm just going to take this one that is pretty much used up, but it's still got a little bit of life left in it. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to press down into each color. See how I'm folding the paper towel over? If it gets filled up, just take another one, fold it over. What you're doing there is you're soaking up any extra water, any extra paint that may have gotten mixed in, just pressing it in there. And each time you fold it, that means it's going to stay kind of clean. And then this is pretty much ready to go, guys. Now, if you close it right away, they're not going to dry as fast. I always recommend that people leave it open to close a couple hours, even overnight. Just kind of set it aside like this, let your brushes dry, let the paint dry, and you're going to have paint that is in good shape and ready to go next time. I'm going to rinse out my water cup, of course, and I'm going to recycle this paper. As cool as it is, I'm going to recycle it. These paper towels probably are not going to become sun catchers in my house anytime soon, but all my students are always like, oh, I love my paper towel now. So if you love your paper towel now, it's a great way to recycle, reduce, and reuse to turn these into artwork later too. You can cut them into shapes, put them in your window for sun catchers. So guys, I am going to just call it a day here. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you did too. Thanks so much for drawing and painting with me, guys. I hope you had a good time. See you next time.